welcome back to Calle 7 podcast. This is your host Miguel with Ricardo, and this week uh, we're going to be covering Game Week 26 and also going over the most transferred in and transferred out players, as well going over Game Week 27 and also looking into Game Week 29 and that blink. From there, we'll talk about predicted points, some potential transfers in that we're gonna have, and then we're then gonna actually do our transfers, and then from there we're gonna go and look at fixtures for game week 27. But for myself, I guess we'll start off how I did with game week 26. I did not very good, 52 points. Um, I had to bring in Watkins fairly late for Hoyland as he got injured. I was intending on cap putting him as captain, but that was a miss on my part. I ended up captaining Holland. Um, and for Holland, I mean, he hasn't been doing all that well, but there's a bright future for him now that I believe now that he has more of like Kevin De Bruyne that's coming into form, being able to assist them a little bit more. And then also bringing in, I brought in Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa, having a good game against Northern Forest, scoring 2 goals and scoring 15 points. And then now we'll go on to Ricardo, where he'll talk about his team and how he did for game week 26.
All right, now looking into my week, my team this week, 44 points, another red arrow. It really comes down to not really having any Arsenal players in the team. It's one of those things where if you don't really have any Arsenal players, you're kind of really in the mix of things where you're kind of like, okay, Saka's scoring like 10 points every week. Gabriel and Saliba are also scoring big points every week. As with my two players that I transferred in this week, Gross and Welbeck being one of those two players, I did take out Darwin Nunez at the very end, pretty much taking a -4 hit for Welbeck. And my transfer in this week was Gross, him having scoring pretty much an assist at the very last minute for Brighton. Very fortunate there, but also pretty much a good pick, I would say, for the next two fixtures that do come up against. He does have a good fixture against Fulham and then a good fixture against Forest within the next two games. Also touching up a bit on more on Holland. Holland did also blink this week as well, having pretty much only an assist this week. But future is looking bright with Holland, with him scoring big against Luton in the FA Cup, 5 goals. That would be against Luton with his next fixture against United. Only time will tell if he's a good captain this week. We'll see. Now looking in at the most transferred in players for FPL this game week 27. As you can see, we have Solanke coming in at Solanke, Salah, Saka, and Douglas Luiz, one of the top four for this game week. Solanke, of course, being one of those transfers where he does have a double game week next week in game week 28. He has a potential injury and a 75% chance of playing, but who knows? Same with Salah facing up against Forest this week. One of those transfers where Salah would be a big differential this week if you were to bring him in. But who knows him as well? He's probably one of those players where he might get some minutes. He might come off the bench. Who knows? Whereas with Saka's been scoring big points pretty much every game week. Last game week, I believe he's been scoring around 10 points. Every moment that me personally, we both don't have any Arsenal assets. That's really hurting our teams and really hurting our game week rank. With the Arsenal assets, of course, being one of those players where he does score the main points for Arsenal. Lastly, we have Douglas Luiz, as we could saw within my brother's team. He was one of those players where he did shine, scoring a big 15 points against Forest, and moving forward, he also does have really good fixtures coming up.
Yeah, so now going on to the most transferred out players for FPL. Definitely something to note is we have Kevin De Bruyne being number one most transferred out player. I would say, I mean, definitely a little bit too soon considering he is getting back into form and what he did against Luton, having 4 assists. I would say definitely a little bit too early for those that did transfer him out. I would even consider him a good pick for upcoming weeks. And then also another one to note is with Darwin and especially having him on my team. I'm still considering on keeping him on my team. I believe he's a 75% chance of playing. But I do see a potential in him playing this week. Maybe not off as a starter, as he didn't play in the FA Cup this week. But I do see him maybe coming off the bench and hopefully even getting a goal.
So now looking on to this week's fixtures and as well as game week 29, we will talk about that as well. Looking on to this week, we do see that we have Arsenal having one of the best fixtures this week against Sheffield United. Um, that being that it is an away game, but it's one of those games where Arsenal have been in really really good form against against teams this thing, and whereas with Sheffield United being at the very bottom of the tier, it's one of those games where you really need to have Arsenal assets in order to score big this week.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree on that. Having Arsenal as a good team for players bringing in, but I would also say another good fixture is the fixture for Liverpool against Nottingham Forest. Even though they're going to be away, I do believe this is a good fixture for Liverpool, coming off a win in that FA Cup, and just been doing very well as of late. I do see them winning this game very comfortably. Um, and then another one I would say is the Manchester City versus Manchester United game, which is going to be the game week of the week. I mean the game of the week. And I do see this one favorable for Manchester City, considering they're going to be at home. Considering Kevin De Bruyne is going to be back, it's going to be a lot on a lot of like what's going to determine if like Holland is going to get some goals. Um, and with Manchester United, I mean, they're not going to be all that well, considering that maybe Hoyland is off and coming off of that Fulham loss against Fulham last week.
Yeah, I agree. And now looking on to some of the other fixtures that we do have here, looking into maybe a more of a one of those fixtures where it's one of those games that are more in the bottom. Bournemouth against Burnley. I do believe this is one of the good fixtures coming up this week with players with managers that do have Dominic Solanke in their team, me being one of them. It's one of those games where if Dominic Solanke does play, he does have a potential of scoring big against a team like Burnley where they have not been playing well this whole this whole league pretty much. Burnley has been struggling against a lot of these teams lately, and I think Bournemouth is one of those teams that might get the edge over Burnley as well. Now looking on to as well one of those games against Newcastle versus Wolves. I believe this is also another good fixture, being that Newcastle is at home this week against Wolves. Of course, Wolves is one of those teams where they can cause an upset to any of the big teams, as we saw against Tottenham. But me having Newcastle assets as well as maybe a Trippier and a Gordon that I do have in my team, it's one of those games where you kind of just pray and think that Gordon is one of those, definitely one of those players where he does shine in the Newcastle team, scoring pretty much every game or assisting every game.
Yeah, definitely. I would say another game is the Aston Villa versus Luton game. Being this being a good fixture for Aston Villa. Having myself bringing in Douglas Luiz, I believe he's gonna be a big asset this weekend. Even though they're gonna be away. Also with Watkins, he's gonna be a strong asset. Um, but I mean, I think like a strong transfer last week was with Pau Torres. Some of the like defenders for Aston Villa. Um, I don't see that very favorable. Um, maybe I mean maybe this week a little bit more than last week, but I didn't see like a big return last week with those transfers.
Okay, so now looking on to predicted points this week, looking at the most favored players for this game week 27, we have Saka, of course, being one of those players that have has scored big within the pretty much every game week within the last 5 game weeks. Saka is definitely one of those players where if you don't have him in your team, is one of those players that is definitely causing managers to cause havoc pretty much in my team as well. I don't have Saka, but I do want to bring in more Arsenal assets in this week as well. Now moving on to more of a another pick that is more of a differential for this week is definitely a Mohamed Salah, one of those players that is doubtful in terms of his chance of playing this week, but it's one of those players where if you do have him this week and if he does play this week, it's one of those players that he does have a big chance of scoring big this week as well. He does have Forest this week, which is a really good game. He does have him away, but it's one of those games where if he does start, it's one of those players that you definitely need to have. Now moving on to a Son. Son being one of those players where it's definitely one of those big differentials in the team. Whereas I have him in my team. Him playing against Crystal Palace this week, of course, with that blank game week. Many managers not having him. I did go in for Son against Wolves. Unfortunately, it didn't go out well, but it's one of those things where you just have to hope for the best against Crystal Palace as well. He is available, and he is going to be hopefully be playing. Hopefully, Tottenham do play better this week against Crystal Palace, and not play like they played against Wolves. And hopefully, Son does score those goals that are necessary to bring in a good points this week. Go for Saka or Havertz. Me personally, I would go for a Havertz. It's just because me personally, he is a cheaper option, and also he is a bigger differential if he does score big. But one of my main concerns is Gabriel Jesus. And then you can scroll over and then be like, okay, that reason being is Gabriel Jesus is finally back from an injury and he could take minutes away from Havertz, some shit like that. All right, ready?
Okay, so yeah, another player with some strong predicted points that I would consider is Kai Havertz from Arsenal. Considering Arsenal is has the better fixtures. Um, Let me start again.
You gotta know where the players are, dude. Havertz. Okay, then where's Gabriel Jesus? Gabriel Jesus is over Isaac right there, and then Douglas Luiz under Son. Okay, go.
Yeah, some of my players that I see good potential points this week is Kai Havertz with Arsenal. Considering they got that good fixture against Sheffield. It is he is a differential for this going to be a differential for this week. Having scored against Newcastle a goal and then an assist, 14 points last week. Um, it's either bringing in Kai Havertz or even Asaka would be good. But for myself, I'm wanting that big return with the differential. But a thing with Kai Havertz is also he is a little bit cheaper than Saka. But the thing is that with Gabriel Jesus coming back into form, he is potentially going to be taking some points no, it's taking some minutes away from Kai Havertz, coming in as a sub, maybe later on in the half for that Sheffield game. Um, but I'm willing to, like I said, take that differential. Um, and I mean, Gabriel Jesus, he's coming into form, so there's a potential for even him getting a goal away. And then another player that is good for potential points, I have him on my team as well, is Douglas Luiz. Last week, again, scoring big, 15 points, 2 goals. This week, there he's going against Luton away. I do see maybe not 2 goals, maybe not as high of a return in points as last week, but maybe a goal or an assist. Um, so definitely a good player to keep in mind. And now we're gonna go on to our transfers for this week.
So now looking at our transfers out for this game week 27, we do have a. For me personally, I do want to get rid of at least a. I do want to get a Trippier. Trippier has been, like I said, is one of those players that has been disappointing me in terms of points, in terms of assists, and in terms of defending and overall. Newcastle has just been one of those teams where they just can't be counted on for getting defensive points. So I would like to take out Trippier for more of a better asset as a Gabriel from Arsenal. As I said, Gabriel is one of those players where he's just been really good in the Arsenal team. Even even when he played against Newcastle, it was pretty much very unfortunate that he didn't get a goal against Newcastle. Pretty much being an own goal, that first goal. Um, Against Sheffield United is one of those fixtures where you definitely need to have an Arsenal asset, and me finally bringing in an Arsenal asset as Gabriel is definitely going to be beneficial for my team. So yeah, doing that transfer, looking into my game week 27, this is how my game week 27 team is going to line up with Gabriel in my back line, Foden, Gross, Gordon, and Son in my midfield, and a uh, strikers, my three strikers being Welbeck, Holland, and Solanke. And with the Garnacho being on the bench, of course, against City, I don't think Garnacho is going to really be that type of player that's going to score big points. But he might come on against Solanke depending on if Solanke does play as well. Yeah, so that's my team. Now let's look at my brother's team.
Yeah, so for myself, I'm gonna be transferring out Neto for Kai Havertz. Um, Trying to get that big differential. I decided on Kai Havertz over Saka. Um, Considering, I mean, last couple game weeks, he had a goal and assist against Newcastle, and then Burnley a goal and an assist. Nothing against West Ham. Got an assist against Liverpool, but I just believe, I mean, being that he's a little bit cheaper, I do see some potential in him, um, getting those big points with him. And for my lineup for game week 27, I'm gonna actually start Areola over Flecken. Having him go against Everton, I believe he's a better choice. And then my a back line of three with Walker, Mikalenko, Virgil, and then a midfield of Luis Diaz, Kai Havertz, Douglas Luis, and Luis Holden, Phil Foden. And then my strikers of Holland, captaincy, Watkins, and Darwin. And now we're gonna talk about the fixtures for game week 27 and what we think they're gonna be.
So yeah, looking at game week 27 fixtures. First fixture here against Brentford, Chelsea. I did go for a Brentford are at home this game week, so I did go for a Brentford win over Chelsea, 2-1.
I have the opposing score. I have Chelsea winning 2-1 away.
Okay, now looking on to Everton, West Ham. Everton being at home against West Ham, and West Ham having one of those pretty much being not dependable, but Everton having a really good defense. So I would go with a tie here of Everton, West Ham 1-1.
Yeah, definitely. I For this one I got the same. I got this being a tie, 2-2.
Now looking on to Fulham and Brighton, one of those two teams were pretty much, I would say, evenly matched in terms of players. I also went with a draw 2-2.
For this one, I got Brighton winning 2-1 away.
Now looking on to another fixture here, Newcastle versus Wolves. Newcastle are at home this week. I do believe this game is going to be one of those games that either goes good for Newcastle or goes bad. I did say goes good for Newcastle. Newcastle winning 3-2 against Wolves.
This one's, I believe, is going to be a close game. Um, I got Wolves winning this one away 1-0.
Nice. Now looking on to Forest and Liverpool. Forest being at home against Liverpool this game week. I do believe Liverpool are going to continue to go on their winning ways. So I'm going to go with a 1-3 Liverpool.
For this one, I got Liverpool smashing Nottingham Forest 4-0. I believe the they're gonna demolish Nottingham Forest and have some good points for some good players.
Okay. Now looking on to Spurs Crystal Palace. This is one of those games where it could go either way. It all pretty much depends on how Spurs does come out playing. But I'm going to go on Spurs side and go with a 2-0 win for Spurs.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that they could go either way for Tottenham. Considering that they're playing home, thinking that they're gonna win 2-0 against Crystal.
Now this game against Luton and Aston Villa. Luton are home against Aston Villa. Luton always does seem up to play well against those bigger teams in the top six. And Aston Villa being one of those teams where they don't really perform as well as they do at home. So I would say a 2-2 draw for this match.
For this one, I'm gonna give the contrary, and I think Aston Villa is gonna show up away, and they're gonna win 3-1.
Okay, now looking on to Sunday's fixtures, Burnley versus Bournemouth. This is like the game that we talked about. Bournemouth having Solanke, and I do believe Bournemouth will edge this game out, being a 1-2 win for Bournemouth.
I gotta, yeah, Solanke will be a good pick this week. I believe he might get a goal there away, and I have Bournemouth winning 2-0.
Now looking on to one of the best games for this week, of course, being Manchester City versus Man United. Man City are at home this time. Last time they did beat Man United 3-0. So I think it's going to be another one of those games. And going on to City's favor, 4-2 for Manchester City.
Yeah, it's for this one I got Man City winning as well. Considering that they're at home, Manchester United. I mean, it's just they're very inconsistent. But I got Man City winning this one 3-0 at home.
Now looking on to the last fixture, Sheffield United against Arsenal. I do believe Arsenal are going to smash Sheffield 4-0. Or Arsenal are going to smash Sheffield 4-0, I mean.
For this one, I see a close game. Considering that Arsenal is playing away, I got Arsenal winning 2-1.
And that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.